Okay, we are live. Hey, everybody. We're going to get started in here just a second. So are you able to go online to share the video?
For some reason, it's not popping up.
Let's see here. Okay, it's popped up on mine, so I'm going to share it.
I've got it now.
Okay, I'm about to say you might have to refresh.
Yep, there we go.
Okay, so let me share here. Alrighty. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Awesome. Okay, everybody, it's 7:02. We're going to go ahead and get started. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Megan Pinckney, and I am founder and CEO of Joseph's Ministry, LLC, and I am here with our new author, Jannette McCormick. Hey, Jannette, how are you?
I am great. Thank you for having me, Megan.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. So before we dive into the reason of why we're here, can you please introduce yourself to the people and tell them a little bit more about yourself and some of the amazing things that you have going on in your life?
Yeah. Well, quickly, I forgot to raise my book when you said it. So this is my new book, Art of Being You. But I was born and raised in Oklahoma, and I have two older brothers. I went to college here in Oklahoma, and that's where I met my husband, Gary. We've been married for almost 29 years. We have two awesome sons. Joshua is currently finishing his sophomore year at Oklahoma State University. And then Jacob is graduating from high school this year, and he'll be attending the University of Tulsa this fall. Most of my professional life has been in the human resources field. And so many times I've had to interview people for positions that were open in our organization. And the one question I always like to ask is, what brings you joy? So what is it about your past position that really gave you joy in your life? And for me, that's always been helping other people. So whether it's helping them solve a problem or fine-tuning their skills to improve their abilities, my joy really does come from helping others.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. That's amazing. So you showed everybody your book, your new book, Art of Being You. So congratulations for writing your first book. So with that being said, can you tell the people a little bit about what this book is about and why you chose the title Art of Being You?
Sure. So this book is really about my personal story, my journey through overcoming the anxiety that was interwoven into my childhood. So at a young age, I was put into a caregiver role for my mother, who suffered from a mental health illness. She had a severe anxiety disorder. And because of that, many of the behaviors I learned as a child were unhealthy. And so I decided that I wanted to share my story with others in hopes that it could be a resource for them to also overcome the anxiety that they may have in their life, whether it's through being a caregiver to a parent or whether it's through their own traumatic experience. I really just wanted to be able to help others with this. And I chose the title Art of Being You mainly because of the word art. For me, that represents aspire, renew, and transform. And that's exactly what this book details is my journey, my hope and want, my aspiration to change those unhealthy behaviors that were they were learned through an anxious lens that I learned being a caregiver and transform them into healthy behaviors. And to do that, I had to renew my mind. I had to lean heavily on God. But by doing it, I was able to break the anxiety cycle that had always surrounded my life. And spoiler alert, by doing this, you also discover what God's true purpose is for your life. And it's been an incredible journey. And I just hope that others can use the book as a resource to help them break their own anxiety cycles.
Wow, you said so much in that. I mean, one, you gave us an equation, aspire plus renew plus transformed means the art of being who you really are. So I absolutely love that play on words because it is a journey. But one of the things that you mentioned, and I want to kind of ask that you elaborate a little bit more on this. You said that you had to break some unhealthy behaviors that you learned from a child. Do you feel that you can share a little bit, at least one of those unhealthy behaviors that you learned and that you wrote about in the book?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you, one of the biggest ones for me was I had a false sense of responsibility. And so what I mean by that is, as a child, even though my parents never, ever put this responsibility on me, I felt as though my mother's happiness was my responsibility. And so that I had to do things to ensure her happiness in life. And as an adult, I carried that forward with me. So if you were a close friend, if you were a colleague, if you were my boss, and you asked for my help, I felt like I was responsible for your success. And if my assistants didn't help you achieve what you were looking for, then I felt like it was my fault. And that is not healthy. I mean, every person is responsible for their own life, but that's one thing that I learned as a child caregiver that I had to break and realize that not everything's my responsibility. I don't have to own everything.
Wow. I mean, that can preach by itself because we can probably all find ourselves in that state. It's like,
Yes.
you take on a project and without the project, it's like you don't know what to do. You want everybody to be happy, all those things. But you, like you said, nobody told you that this
Right.
was your responsibility. No one put this pressure on you. But as a child, you don't have the mindset or the thought process to know, hey, the roles were flipped. So I'm just going to do the best that I can to help my parents, but this is not normal. You don't know that as a child.
Mm-mm.
So you just kind of do the best that you can.
Yeah, you do. And those little gaps of understanding, children are creative. And so you fill it with your own story, with your own ideas.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly what I did. Like I said, my parents never, ever implied that was my responsibility. But just because I knew that my actions affected my mother, both positively and negatively, I took that on as my role.
Wow. So the subtitle of your book is Breaking the Anxiety Cycle. And you mentioned a few times you had the lens of anxiety. So from your own words and point of view, can you define what anxiety means to you?
Yeah. That's hard because it's different for everyone. But for me, it was really that barrier that kept me from doing things. So if I was in a situation that made my mother nervous when I was growing up,
Mhm.
she taught me to view that incident with an anxious lens. And so I became nervous. A great example is driving. I mean, I drove my mother places because she couldn't. And she was constantly telling me, don't speed. Do you see that car? Do you see the lights turning red? And so I developed this anxiety when I drive. It makes me very nervous and I have to calm myself in order to do it. But for me, anxiety, it really has a physical side. So I have problems breathing. I start getting very lightheaded and very confused. Like I can't reason things out like I normally could. That's my response to anxiety. But that's going to differ for every person.
Wow, that is so true. Oh my goodness. So with you telling your story, writing the book, we are here today and you are looking back on what happened over your life. But what made you, or what part in your process or your journey where you were like, this is a problem? I need to fix it. I need to be inspired. I need to renew. I need to be transformed. What incident, if there was one, that made you really assess your life and say, hey, this is not right. I need to change something.
Yeah. For me, it was a kind of a traumatic moment in my life, and that is when my father passed away. And I'm very close to my parents, and especially my father. And so when he passed away, I realized that my mother needed 24/7 care. And I knew that was, or I thought that was my role.
Yeah.
And then I had my own family to take care of, and I had a full-time career. And I wasn't quite sure how I was going to manage all of that.
Right.
And my two older brothers came to me and said, look, Jannette, this is not your responsibility. Making sure that mom's happy is not your role in life. And so we're going to help you. We're going to set up some boundaries, and we're going to help take care of mom so that you don't put yourself in that role.
Right.
And I was so overwhelmed by the love that they showed in that moment. But I was also a complete hot mess, because everything I thought was my role in life, I realized was not. And so now I'm going, what is my role? I thought that's what God wanted me to do, take care of my mom.
Right.
But if it's not, who am I? And so that's what started this journey towards trying to find truly what was my purpose that God designed me for.
Wow. Well, I just want to thank your two older brothers for coming to you in love, and just really like having that moment to say, hey, and a moment outside of your own mind.
Yes.
Someone
Yeah.
outside of you that made you aware of what's going on, so I thank them.
Oh, and I do too. And in fact, I dedicated the book to them because without them, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So
So thank you, brothers. Yeah. I mean, but you mentioned even having the spoiler alert that, hey, you do have a purpose. So what have you discovered that your purpose is in life?
I am that that was a tough one, right? Because you have to let go of all those perceptions that you have of yourself.
Yeah.
And you have to really learn that you need to love yourself just like God loves you. And so when I was trying to figure out what my talents were, the things that kept coming, God kept bringing forward to me was that I'm an encourager,
Mhm.
that he's gifted me with wisdom.
Yeah.
Even though at times you may not choose to use it, it's there. But the biggest thing is I just have a love to help people. I mean, I just had this desire to help them be the best versions of themselves possible.
Yeah.
And so that is really, I think God played on that passion that he's given me to say, look, this is who I want you to be. This is your role. I want you to help others understand that mental illness is nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah.
And that if we all come together and use our gifts that he's given us,
Mhm.
then we can help one another through anything.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why I'm so passionate about this book. And I really, truly hope it does serve as a resource for others.
Absolutely. And you mentioned, you took something that was, I don't want to say negative, but something that shaped your world as a child, and you flipped it. It's like, okay, that happened to me, but let me think about like those same skills, those same gifts, that same passion that you have now. It was there as a child. It was just
Yes.
unrealized, and it was not shaped and formed and matured at that age. So it's the same you, it's just with boundaries.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because I was thinking about that earlier today. And it's almost like the circumstances of your life
Yeah.
at times may put you on a detour, right?
Yeah.
So, the needs of my mom and of my family kind of detoured what my true meaning of life was. But God still used that time to help build different talents within me so that now that I'm redirected back onto the path, I can use those to help not only my family, but others.
That is so awesome. That's good. I
Yeah.
mean, that's exactly what it is. It's like there was no time lost. It was
No.
just redirected, like you stated, and realigned. So when people, as you're talking, as you're writing your book, who is your target audience when you're really thinking about your journey?
Everyone. And that sounds really self-serving, I know. But originally, I really was focused on those caregivers as a child. I mean, because that's my story, right?
Yeah.
And then that developed more into anyone that really had to manage mental illness within their family. That's really the core group that I was focused on for this book.
Yeah.
But what I discovered is, anxiety is the most often diagnosed mental illness in the United States. So whether you've ever had experience or a family member has had experience with anxiety, you probably know someone that's suffering from it right now and don't even realize it. And so my hope is that my book can serve as a resource, not only for those former child caregivers, but also for their friends, for their family members to be able to use to help them break the anxiety cycle. So it's really a resource for everyone. And I'll give you a quick story that illustrates this. I really wished my husband had had this book when we first got married, because after we had the kids, a situation would occur and I would say, okay, this is how we're going to respond. And he would go, no, we are not responding that way. And I would get so mad at him, like, you have all the answers, right? But what he realized, because he was so wise, he realized that if we had responded in the way I wanted, we would have been teaching our sons to look at things through an anxious lens. And I would have just continued that cycle in my family.
Yeah.
But he stepped in and he stopped that.
Yeah.
And so if he'd had this resource, he probably would have done it more diplomatically. We wouldn't have had as many fights.
Right.
But I was blessed to have a husband that recognized it and helped guide our family away from it. Not everyone has that. And so I'm hoping that the book will be a resource for them as well.
Wow, that's so good. And you can be, with this resource now, you can be that that shifter to say, hey, no, do not respond that way. You don't have to. That's not the proper way to do things. That's, learn from my mistakes, learn from my not knowing, learn from whatever, from my journey, and don't respond that way because you don't have to.
Exactly.
Give them another option. It's like, hey, continue.
Yes.
So
Yes,
no,
exactly.
thank you for sharing that story. So when people do read your story, what do you want them to get out of it? Yes, you said a lot. There's a lot to grab from this book, but if you had to choose one thing, what would you want people to get out of reading your book?
Can I choose two?
Sure.
The first thing is freedom. Like I said before, that example I used of that false sense of responsibility. I mean, I put so much pressure on myself throughout my life, thinking that I was responsible for so many things that I wasn't, that it was really freeing to know that my responsibility lies where God places it. And that my responsibility is to share my gifts and talents with others to help them. It's not anything more than that. And so having the freedom to truly discover what you're responsible for, I think is the first thing that I want my book to help others with. The second thing is I really, really want, if there's one takeaway, is I want families to understand that sharing the story, even with your children, is so important. So, my parents had a very difficult situation and they tried to protect my brothers and I from a lot of the details of it. But what happened is I made up my own story and it was a lot worse than what probably was accurate. And so I just encourage all families and all loved ones to share your true stories. Don't worry about fear of rejection. Don't worry about the stigma that society puts on it, but share your story so that you can support one another through any challenge you're going through. And that is so important for everyone's mental health, but also to bring us together, as God's children, as He designed.
That's awesome. Wow. Thank you so much. So where can people buy your book?
So it is officially released today. Super
Yay.
excited. We had a 2-week pre-sale that has ended. So now it is out there and you can find it on Amazon. You can find it at bn.com, which is Barnes & Noble's website. You can find it at Goodreads. And then one other thing I wanted to mention is, you know, I want the book to be a conversation, and you'll find it is written as though we're sitting down just having a conversation. I'm not a formal writer by any means, but if you'd like to continue after you read the book, and if you'd like to continue the conversation with me, I've put together an email. You can just send me your thoughts, send me your feedback, and it is artofbeingyoubook.com. Make sure you include the word book, or you'll be corresponding with someone who I'm sure is lovely, but it's not me. And so I just welcome everyone to tell me your story, give me your feedback, whatever, but continue the conversation with me through that email.
Oh, awesome. Thank you for sharing. So we will put the links in the chat. So you'll have the direct links, so there won't be any misunderstandings and things like that. But you can also purchase her book through her online store as well.
Yes, thank you.
Yep, absolutely. And we'll put that link in the chat as well. So are there any last minute thoughts or encouragements that you want to leave the people before we exit?
I think I just want to say thank you so much for everyone's time. This has been a God-given journey for me, and I'm so excited to be able to start this conversation, and I hope that it will help others. I know it's helping me. I know I continue on this journey and continue to learn more. But I'd like to reach out, and I once again would just like to reiterate, if you were put in a position as a caregiver at a young age, and you ever felt isolated and like you couldn't share your story because of fear of rejection, I just want you to know you're not alone, that there is more of us out there, and that I just can't wait to hear your story. And I hope that you'll continue the conversation with me.
Awesome. So last question, where can people follow you on social media as well?
That is a great question, and that is in the works. Right now, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm also on Facebook, but I hope to establish more sites just for this purpose.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Jannette, thank you so much. Thank you so much for documenting your journey and really wanting to reach back to help others. That's the whole point. I love that aspect. You have definitely been a pleasure to work with. And we wish you at Joseph's Ministry all the success with everything that you do. But guys, if you're out there watching and this interview has really inspired you to move forward with your purpose of telling your story, we at Joseph's Ministry will love the opportunity to work with you and to get you to the next level in your purpose. So if that's you, please reach out to us at our website at www.josephsministryllc.com. We would love to have a conversation with you to see where we can help you get to your next level in purpose. So
And they are wonderful to work with. So definitely reach out.
Thank you, Jannette. This interview will be placed on our YouTube page. So if you find yourself can't finding the replay on our Facebook page, please visit our YouTube page at Joseph's Ministry. We will have a list of all of our previous interviews and this interview as well for you to review. So guys, thank you so much for your time. We hope you have a wonderful evening, and we will see you on our next author interview. Have a great day.